Life has a way of testing us in the moments we least expect. In a small, humble home, a mother wakes up before the sun rises, her hands rough from years of hard work. Her children, still asleep, dream of a life she's determined to give them, one filled with laughter, opportunity, and a brighter future. But the road ahead is anything but easy. Bills are piling up. The fridge is nearly empty, and her job barely covers the essentials. Every decision feels like a gamble between survival and hope. Today, something feels different. There's a spark in her eyes, a mix of determination and desperation. She's not just fighting for herself anymore. She's fighting for the dreams of her kids. As she juggles shifts at work and side hustles, she begins to wonder if she'll ever break free from the cycle that keeps pulling her back. But just as things seem impossible, an unexpected twist changes everything. A moment, a chance encounter, or perhaps a bold decision, one that could alter the course of their lives forever. Stay tuned to see how one mother's resilience and unwavering love turn the odds in her favor. This is a story of struggle, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bond of family. Will she create the future her children deserve? Or will the weight of her challenges prove too much to bear? Let's find out. As the days turned into weeks, the mother's routine became an unrelenting cycle of exhaustion. She worked double shifts at a local diner, the kind of job that left her feet aching and her mind too tired to think about anything beyond the next paycheck. Every tip she earned, every extra hour she worked, was carefully calculated: rent, groceries, school supplies. But no matter how hard she tried, it felt like she was falling behind. Her eldest child, a bright and curious teenager, noticed the strain even though she tried to hide it. He'd started skipping his lunch breaks at school, saving the money she gave him to secretly help with groceries. The youngest, still too little to understand, would climb into her lap at the end of the day, asking if they could ever go on a vacation like the other kids at school. She'd smile, ruffle his hair, and whisper, "Someday, baby. Someday." But someday felt like a distant dream, especially after the landlord raised the rent unexpectedly. It was a blow she hadn't seen coming. That night, as she stared at the stack of unpaid bills on the kitchen table, her hands trembled. The fluorescent light above buzzed softly, the only sound in the room, as she fought back tears. She couldn't let the kids see her break. They needed her to be strong. And then there was the diner. A place filled with regulars who barely noticed her beyond their coffee refills and breakfast orders. She overheard conversations about vacations, promotions, and lives that felt so far removed from her own. But one customer, a woman who always ordered the same black coffee and toast, began to pay attention. She noticed the mother's weary eyes and the way she never complained, even when the shifts were long and the customers were difficult. One day, as the woman was leaving, she slipped a small card into the mother's hand. "You have potential," she said softly, her voice kind but firm. "Call me when you're ready to see it." Before the mother could respond, the woman was out the door. The card felt heavy in her hand. It was plain, with just a name and a number. No explanation. No details. That card sat on the counter for days. Every time she looked at it, a mix of curiosity and fear bubbled up inside her. What could this woman possibly offer her? And why would someone like that want to help her? Meanwhile, life continued to test her. The rent increase meant she had to cut back even more. The fridge was emptier than ever, and she found herself skipping meals so the kids could eat. At the diner, she overheard whispers about layoffs. Her chest tightened every time her manager walked by, wondering if today would be the day she lost the only stability she had. Her eldest son started to change too. He'd always been the kind of kid who dreamed big, talking about college, starting his own business, and giving her a better life. But now, he seemed distant, spending more time out of the house and less time on his schoolwork. She worried he was losing hope, just like she sometimes did late at night when the world felt impossibly heavy. One evening, after another grueling shift, she came home to find her son sitting at the table, staring at his phone with a look of frustration. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice gentle but tired. He hesitated, then showed her a message from his teacher about missing assignments. "I don't see the point, Mom," he said quietly. "We can't even afford to get by now. How am I supposed to believe I can have a better life?" His words hit her like a punch to the gut. She wanted to tell him he was wrong, that things would get better, but the truth was, she didn't know if they would. That night, after the kids were asleep, she picked up the card again. She stared at it for a long time before finally dialing the number. The voice on the other end was calm and confident. The woman from the diner. She introduced herself and explained that she ran a nonprofit that helped women like her single mothers, struggling to make ends meet, but full of untapped potential. "You're not alone," she said. "We can help you, but you have to take the first step." The mother wasn't sure what that step looked like, but she agreed to meet. The next day, she found herself sitting in a small office, surrounded by other women who looked just as nervous and weary as she felt. They listened to stories of resilience and success, tales of women who had faced impossible odds and come out stronger. But even as she listened, doubt crept in. Was this really possible for her? Could she break free from the life she'd always known? Or was she setting herself up for more heartbreak? Back at home, things were still unraveling. Her son had started spending time with a group of older kids, ones she didn't trust. Her youngest had begun asking why she wasn't around as much anymore. And the bills kept piling up, a constant reminder of how far she still had to go. The tension in the house was palpable, and she felt like she was being pulled in 1,000 directions at once. Every time she tried to take a step forward, something else seemed to drag her back. But through it all, there was a small, flickering hope. A belief that maybe, just maybe, she could find a way to create a better future. As the days went on, she found herself at a crossroads. Should she take the leap and trust the nonprofit's program, risking the little stability she had for the chance at something better? Or should she keep pushing forward on her own, even if it felt like she was running in circles? The answers weren't clear, and the stakes were higher than ever. Her son was slipping further away, the landlord was growing impatient, and the whispers of layoffs at the diner grew louder. The pressure was mounting, and the path ahead was anything but certain. Would she find the strength to fight for her family's future? Or would the weight of her struggles prove too much to bear? The answers lay just beyond her reach, and the clock was ticking. The turning point came one evening as the mother sat alone in the quiet kitchen, staring at the program materials the nonprofit had given her. The words blurred together, her exhaustion threatening to pull her under. But something stopped her from giving up. It wasn't just the weight of her struggles, it was the thought of her children and the life she wanted for them. Her son's words echoed in her mind. "How am I supposed to believe I can have a better life?" She knew she couldn't answer that question with words alone. She had to show him. The next morning, she signed up for the nonprofit's training program. It wasn't an easy decision. It meant cutting back on shifts at the diner, leaving her with even less income in the short term. But she told herself it was an investment, a leap of faith for a better future. The program focused on skills she had never dreamed of learning: financial literacy, career development, and entrepreneurship. The first weeks were tough. She struggled to balance the training sessions with her job and the needs of her children. Her son remained distant, and she worried about the path he was heading down. Her youngest sensed the tension in the house and clung to her whenever she was home. She felt like she was failing them, even as she pushed herself harder than ever. But slowly, something began to shift. At the training sessions, she found herself surrounded by other women who understood her struggles. They shared stories of resilience, hope, and progress. For the first time in years, she didn't feel so alone. The program also helped her uncover skills she didn't know she had. She was a fast learner, and her determination caught the attention of the mentors. One mentor in particular, an older woman who had once been in her shoes, took her under her wing. She saw the potential the mother struggled to see in herself, and encouraged her to think bigger. "You're stronger than you know," the mentor told her one day after a session. "You've been fighting for your family every single day. Now it's time to fight for your dreams." The mother hadn't thought about her dreams in years. They'd been buried under the weight of survival. But now, with the support of the program and her growing confidence, she began to imagine what a brighter future might look like. She dreamed of starting her own small business, something she could build for her family, something that would give her children a life she'd never had. Meanwhile, her relationship with her son remained strained. One night, after another argument about his schoolwork, she found him sitting on the porch, staring at the stars. She sat down beside him, the silence between them heavy. "I know things are hard right now," she said finally, "but I'm doing this for you and your brother. I want you to believe that life can be different." He didn't respond right away, but eventually he said, "I just don't see how things will ever get better." His words broke her heart, but they also strengthened her resolve. She knew she had to keep going, not just for herself, but for him. The weeks turned into months, and slowly, she started to see progress. The training program helped her secure a grant to start her business, a small catering service, that allowed her to use her skills in the kitchen. It wasn't easy at first. There were late nights, long hours, and moments of doubt. But with each small success, her confidence grew. Her children began to notice the changes too. The fridge was no longer empty, and there was a new sense of hope in their home. Her son started opening up to her again, and she saw glimpses of the bright, ambitious boy he used to be. He even began helping her with the business, learning skills that would serve him in the future. One day, as they were preparing an order together, he looked at her and said, "Maybe things really can get better." That moment felt like a victory, but the journey was far from over. The mother still faced challenges, unexpected expenses, tough competition, and the constant pressure to succeed. But she faced them with a renewed sense of purpose. Her youngest child, too, began to see the world differently. When he asked her about vacations now, she didn't have to give him vague promises. Instead, she told him, "We're working toward it, and one day we'll get there." The turning point for the business came when one of her catering events caught the attention of a local journalist. They featured her story in a piece about small businesses overcoming adversity, and the exposure brought in a wave of new customers. Suddenly, she wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. With the success of her business, she was able to move her family into a better home. It wasn't a mansion, but it was warm, safe, and filled with love. Her son's grades improved, and he started talking about college again. Her youngest finally got to go on that vacation he dreamed of, a weekend at the beach that felt like the start of a new chapter for their family. Through it all, the mother never forgot where she came from. She continued to attend the nonprofit's events, mentoring other women who were just starting their journeys. She shared her story not to boast, but to inspire, to show them that change was possible, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Looking back, she realized that the struggles she'd faced had shaped her into the person she was. They had taught her resilience, strength, and the power of hope. Her journey wasn't just about overcoming hardship, it was about creating a legacy of love and determination for her children. As she stood in her kitchen one evening, watching her children laugh and talk about their dreams, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. Life hadn't been easy, but she'd found her way through the darkness. And now, she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she had the strength to face them and a future worth fighting for. This story isn't just about one mother's journey. It's a reminder that no matter how difficult life may seem, there is always a way forward. Through hard work, faith, and the support of those who believe in us, we can overcome even the greatest obstacles. It's not about where you start, it's about where you're willing to go. And for this mother, the journey was just beginning.